The bullet struck the wooden post 6 inches from Willa Vaughn's head, and she did not flinch because, at 43 years old, death seemed more familiar than the possibility of love ever finding her again. Snowflake, Arizona Territory, 1885, had seen its share of trouble, but Willa had weathered worse storms than a few drunk cowboys shooting up Main Street on a Saturday night. She stepped onto the porch of her general store, the hem of her practical brown skirt swishing against the weathered boards, and fired her late husband's rifle into the air. The sharp crack silenced the chaos, and 3 men stumbled toward their horses, suddenly remembering they had somewhere else to be. "Damn fools," she muttered, lowering the weapon. The street returned to its usual quiet hum, and Willa turned back inside, her shop filled with the familiar smells of dried goods, leather, and coffee beans. She had owned the store for 8 years now, ever since Thomas died of pneumonia during that brutal winter. Some women might have sold the business and moved back east to live with relatives, but Willa had nowhere else to go and no desire to become a burden to her sister's family in Philadelphia. This was her life now. Running the store, keeping her ledgers balanced and watching from the sidelines as younger women found husbands and started families. The bell above the door chimed, and Willa looked up from where she was restocking shelves. A man stepped inside, and she knew immediately he was not from Snowflake. He was tall, probably a few years younger than her, with dark hair that fell past his collar and eyes the color of whiskey in sunlight. His clothes marked him as a working cowboy, his boots worn but well-maintained, his hat bearing the dust of long miles. "Afternoon, madam," he said, removing his hat. His voice carried a slight drawl, something from further south. "Name's Vincent Cole. I'm looking for work, and someone at the saloon mentioned you might know who's hiring." Willa set down the can of peaches she had been holding. "The Carmichael Ranch about 5 miles west is always looking for hands. Old man Carmichael's getting up in years, needs help with his herd." Vincent nodded slowly, but he did not move toward the door. Instead, his gaze traveled around the shop, taking in the neat rows of merchandise, the swept floor, the carefully organized inventory. "You run this place by yourself?" "I do," Willa said, her tone not encouraging further conversation. She had learned over the years that keeping people at a distance was easier than explaining her solitary life. "That's impressive," Vincent said, and something in his voice made it sound like he genuinely meant it. "Must be a lot of work for one person." "I manage." Willa moved behind the counter, creating a physical barrier between them. "Will there be anything else?" Vincent seemed to consider this question longer than necessary. "I could use some tobacco and a new pair of work gloves. The ones I have are about worn through." As Willa gathered his items, she could feel his eyes on her, not in the leering way some men looked at women, but with a curiosity that made her uncomfortable in a different way. She tallied his purchase and took his money, their fingers brushing briefly during the exchange. "Thank you, Mrs. Vaughn," she said. "Willa Vaughn." "Thank you, Mrs. Vaughn." He placed his hat back on his head. "I imagine I will be seeing you again soon." After he left, Willa found herself standing at the window, watching him mount a paint horse and ride west toward the Carmichael Ranch. She shook her head at her own foolishness and returned to her work. Men like that, whatever age they were, did not look twice at weathered widows who had forgotten what it felt like to be desirable. 3 days later, Vincent Cole came back into her store. This time he needed supplies for the ranch, a list from Mrs. Carmichael that included flour, sugar, coffee, and various sundries. Willa filled the order efficiently while Vincent leaned against the counter, seemingly content to watch her work. "How long have you been in Snowflake?" Willa asked, more to fill the silence than out of real curiosity. "About 3 days now," Vincent said with a slight smile, "but I like it. Good people here. Mrs. Carmichael makes the best biscuits I have ever eaten, and the work is honest." "Where are you from originally?" "Texas, mostly. My family had a ranch near San Antonio, but after my parents passed, my brother got the land. I have been moving around ever since, taking work where I can find it." He paused. "Gets lonely sometimes, never staying in one place long enough to really know people." Willa wrapped his purchases in brown paper and twine. "That is the life you chose." "Maybe," Vincent said. "But a man can change his mind about what he wants, cannot he?" She handed him the packages, avoiding his eyes. "That will be $4.30. Vincent paid, collected his supplies, but lingered near the door. "Mrs. Vaughn, would you consider having dinner with me sometime? There is a restaurant down the street, nothing fancy, but—" "No," Willa said quickly. "Thank you, but no." "Can I ask why not?" She forced herself to meet his gaze. "Because I am too old for courting and romance and whatever else you have in mind. I had my chance at marriage, and it was good while it lasted. Now I have my store and my life arranged just the way I want it." Vincent did not look offended or even particularly surprised. "What if I just want company? Someone to talk to over a meal? Then find someone your own age, Mr. Cole. There are plenty of young women in this town who would be happy to have dinner with a handsome cowboy." She thought she saw a flicker of something in his eyes, pleasure perhaps at being called handsome, but he simply nodded. "I will see you next time I need supplies then." After he left, Willa sat down heavily on the stool behind her counter. Her heart was beating faster than it should, and her hands trembled slightly as she opened her ledger. She was 43 years old. Vincent could not be more than 35, maybe younger. The very idea of him wanting to court her was absurd. Yet over the following weeks, he kept coming back. Sometimes with legitimate needs for the ranch, sometimes with the flimsiest of excuses. He needed more tobacco. He wanted to look at the new knives she had in stock. He was curious about a book she kept behind the counter. Each visit, he stayed a little longer, talked a little more. He told her about growing up in Texas, about learning to break horses from his father, about the time he had tracked a mountain lion for 3 days to protect his family's livestock. Willa found herself sharing things too, small details about her life she had not spoken aloud in years. How she had met Thomas at a church social in Missouri. How they had moved west together, full of dreams about starting fresh in the territories. How she had taught herself to run the store after he died because the alternative was giving up. "You are a remarkable woman," Vincent said one afternoon as she closed up the store. He had helped her move some heavy crates from the stockroom, refusing to take no for an answer. "I am ordinary," Willa replied, locking the front door. "I do what needs to be done, same as anyone else." "That is what makes you remarkable." Vincent settled his hat on his head. "Most people do not have that kind of strength." Willa turned to face him, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the street. "Why do you keep coming here, Mr. Cole? And please do not tell me it is because you need more tobacco." He smiled, the expression transforming his face from merely handsome to something that made her breath catch. "I come here because talking to you is the best part of my day. Because you are intelligent and capable and you do not simper or pretend to be helpless. Because when I am around you, I feel like maybe I have finally found a reason to stop wandering. Vincent, I know you think you are too old for this," he continued, his voice gentle but firm. "But Willa, I am 37 years old. I have met a lot of women in my life, young and old, beautiful and plain. None of them have made me feel what I feel when I walk through that door and see you behind your counter, running your business with such competence and grace." Willa felt tears pricking at her eyes, and she blinked them back angrily. "You do not know what you are asking. I am asking for a chance. One dinner. One conversation where you do not have your ledger or your merchandise between us. Just two people sharing a meal." She should say no. Every practical bone in her body screamed that she should thank him politely and send him on his way. But something else, some long, dormant part of her heart that still remembered what it felt like to be wanted, whispered a different answer. "One dinner," she heard herself say. "This Sunday, after church." The smile that spread across Vincent's face was worth every bit of fear churning in her stomach. Sunday arrived with clear skies and a gentle breeze that carried the scent of sage across the high desert. Willa spent far too long deciding what to wear, finally settling on a dark blue dress she had not worn in over a year. It was not fancy, but it fit her well and brought out the color of her eyes, which were still clear and bright despite the lines that framed them. She met Vincent outside the small restaurant that served as Snowflake's primary dining establishment. He wore clean clothes, his hair combed back, and he held his hat in his hands. When he saw her, his expression shifted into something close to wonder. "You look beautiful," he said simply. "I look like a middle-aged widow in an old dress," Willa replied, but she could not keep the smile from her face. "Then I guess I have a preference for middle-aged widows in old dresses." The meal was simple but well prepared, roast chicken with potatoes and fresh bread. They sat at a corner table, and at first, Willa felt self-conscious, aware of the curious glances from other diners. Snowflake was a small town, and everyone knew everyone's business. By tomorrow morning, half the territory would know that Willa Vaughn had dinner with the new ranch hand from Carmichael's place. But as the evening progressed, she found herself caring less about what people thought and more about the man sitting across from her. Vincent was easy to talk to, genuinely interested in her opinions on everything from politics to the best way to organize a stockroom. He made her laugh with stories about mishaps on cattle drives and listened intently when she talked about the challenges of running a business in a frontier town. "Do you ever think about doing something else?" Vincent asked as they finished their meal. "Not that there is anything wrong with the store, but do you have other dreams?" Willa considered the question. "When I was younger, I wanted to write. Keep a journal of life out here in the territories, maybe turn it into a book someday. But that seemed like a foolish dream after a while. Who would want to read about the daily struggles of running a general store?" "I would," Vincent said immediately. "And I think plenty of other people would too. Life out here is not easy, especially for women. Your story matters." Something shifted in Willa's chest, a wall she had built carefully over 8 lonely years developing a crack. "What about you? What do you dream about?" Vincent was quiet for a moment, his fingers tracing patterns on the worn tablecloth. "I dream about having a home, not just a place to sleep, but somewhere I belong. Maybe a small ranch of my own, nothing big, just enough land to raise some horses and cattle. And someone to share it with, someone who understands that love does not always look like it does in storybooks." "What does it look like then?" Willa asked softly. "Like partnership, like choosing to stand beside someone even when things get hard, like finding peace in the ordinary moments." He looked up, meeting her eyes. "Like this, maybe. 2 people sharing a meal and realizing they do not want the evening to end." Willa's throat felt tight. "Vincent, I need you to understand something. I am not a young woman anymore. I cannot give you children. I have gray in my hair and lines on my face, and there are days when my back aches from lifting heavy crates. If you are looking for—" "I am looking at you," Vincent interrupted gently. "Just you, exactly as you are, and I am asking you to consider looking at me the same way. Not as some young cowboy passing through, but as a man who knows his own mind and heart. They left the restaurant as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Vincent walked Willa back to her small house behind the store, their pace slow, neither wanting the evening to end. At her door, Willa turned to face him. "Thank you for dinner. I had a lovely time. Can I see you again?" Vincent asked. "Not at the store, just us." "Yes," Willa said, and it felt like stepping off a cliff, terrifying and exhilarating all at once. "I would like that." Vincent reached out, his calloused hand cupping her cheek with surprising gentleness. "May I kiss you?" Willa nodded, not trusting her voice. When his lips met hers, it was soft and sweet, nothing rushed or demanding. It had been 8 years since anyone had kissed her, and she had forgotten how such a simple gesture could make her feel alive, desired, cherished. When they parted, Vincent rested his forehead against hers. "Your heart is not too old, Willa. It is just beginning to wake up again." Over the following months, Snowflake watched with interest as the widow Vaughn and the cowboy Vincent Cole became inseparable. He helped her at the store when he was not working at the Carmichael Ranch, moving heavy inventory and making deliveries to customers who lived outside of town. She packed him lunches for his long days on the range, hearty meals that made the other ranch hands jealous. They took walks together in the evenings, talking about everything and nothing. Vincent told her about his dreams of owning land, and Willa found herself imagining what it would be like to help him build that dream. She showed him her journals, years of observations and stories about life in Arizona Territory, and he encouraged her to think seriously about compiling them into a book. The physical intimacy between them grew slowly, naturally. A held hand while walking, his arm around her shoulders as they watched the sunset, stolen kisses when no one was looking. Willa had forgotten what it felt like to be courted, to have someone look at her like she was precious and desirable. "I love you," Vincent told her one evening as they sat on her porch, the stars spreading out above them like diamonds on black velvet. "I know it might seem too soon, but I have never been more certain of anything in my life." Willa felt tears streaming down her face, but they were tears of joy. "I love you too. I did not think I would ever say those words again." "Say them as many times as you want," Vincent said, pulling her close. "I will never get tired of hearing them." But their happiness was interrupted by practical concerns. Vincent's wages at the Carmichael Ranch were decent, but not enough to buy land or start a ranch of his own. Willa's store provided a steady income, but she had little saved beyond what she needed for emergencies and restocking inventory. "We could save up," Vincent suggested one night as they discussed their future. They had been courting for 6 months now, and marriage was an unspoken certainty hanging between them. "It might take a few years, but if we are careful," Willa interrupted, her mind racing with possibilities, "we could expand the store. There are other towns around here that need supplies, places too far from Snowflake to make regular trips. What if we started doing regular deliveries? You know the territory, know how to handle horses and wagons. We could grow the business, make it profitable enough to eventually buy that land you want." Vincent stared at her, then a slow smile spread across his face. "You would do that, take that kind of risk?" "With you, yes. We would be partners, truly, building something together." They married in October, a simple ceremony at Snowflake's small church with half the town in attendance. Willa wore a new dress, deep green with delicate lace at the collar, and carried wildflowers that Vincent had picked that morning. When the preacher pronounced them husband and wife, Vincent kissed her thoroughly, not caring about the audience, and Willa felt her heart expand with more love than she thought possible at her age. Their wedding night was tender and passionate, both of them nervous in different ways. Willa worried about her body, older and marked by time, but Vincent's hands and words made her feel beautiful. He took his time learning what made her sigh with pleasure, and she rediscovered the joy of physical intimacy with someone who truly loved her. "Are you happy?" Vincent whispered afterward, holding her close in the darkness of their bedroom. "Happier than I ever thought I could be," Willa replied honestly. "You have given me back something I thought I had lost forever." "What is that?" "Hope. A future. The belief that life still has good things waiting, even when you think your story is already written." They threw themselves into expanding the business with determination and joy. Vincent mapped out routes to neighboring settlements and mining camps, places desperate for regular supplies. Willa negotiated with wholesalers for better prices on bulk goods. They bought a larger wagon and 2 additional horses, and Vincent began making regular circuits through the territory. The expansion was not without challenges. There were days when the wagon broke down in the middle of nowhere, times when customers could not pay and they had to extend credit they could not really afford. One memorable week, a late summer storm washed out roads and left Vincent stranded for 4 days while Willa worried herself sick. But they persevered, supporting each other through every setback. When Vincent came home exhausted from a week on the road, Willa had hot meals and a warm bed waiting. When Willa stressed over the ledgers and accounts, Vincent held her and reminded her how far they had come. By their first anniversary, the business had grown enough that they hired a young man named Peter to help with deliveries. This freed up more of Vincent's time, and they began seriously looking at land. Old man Carmichael, who had grown fond of Vincent during his time as a ranch hand, mentioned that he might be willing to sell off a portion of his property at a fair price. "It is about 300 acres, Carmichael explained as they rode out to see the land. "Has good water, decent grazing. I am getting too old to manage all my holdings, and I would rather sell to someone I know will take care of it." The land was beautiful, rolling hills covered with grass and scattered junipers, a creek running through the eastern section that flowed year-round. Willa could picture a house there, a barn, horses grazing in the pastures. She looked at Vincent and saw the same longing in his eyes. "We want it," she told Carmichael. "We will need some time to arrange financing, but we want it." They spent the next 6 months saving every spare cent. Willa cut back on household expenses, and Vincent took on extra work when he was not making deliveries. They sold their larger wagon and bought 2 smaller ones instead, which were more efficient for regular supply routes and left them with some extra capital. Finally, on a crisp spring morning, they signed the papers making them landowners. Vincent picked Willa up and spun her around, both of them laughing like children. Carmichael smiled at their joy, remembering what it felt like to be young and starting out, though neither Willa nor Vincent was particularly young anymore. Building their ranch became a labor of love. They started small, constructing a modest house with 2 bedrooms, a kitchen, and a parlor. Vincent did most of the heavy work while Willa managed the store and their supply routes. Friends and neighbors helped with barn raising, and slowly their dream took physical form. They bought their first horses, 3 mares with good bloodlines that Vincent planned to breed. Willa threw herself into learning about horse breeding and training, reading every book she could find on the subject. Together, they developed a reputation for quality stock, animals that were well-trained and reliable. 2 years into their marriage, they hired a young woman named Sarah to manage the store full-time. This allowed Willa to focus more on the ranch and, finally, on her writing. She began seriously compiling her journals, organizing years of observations about life in Arizona Territory into coherent chapters. Vincent would sit with her in the evenings, reading over her work and offering suggestions. "This part about the winter Thomas died," he said gently one night. "You do not have to include it if it is too painful." "No," Willa said. "It is part of the story. Thomas was a good man and our years together mattered. I can honor that while still celebrating what we have built." Vincent leaned over and kissed her temple. "You are the strongest person I know." Life settled into a comfortable rhythm. They worked hard, building their ranch and their business, but they also made time for joy. Sunday picnics by the creek, evening rides through their property, quiet mornings in bed before the day's work began. Willa had worried in the early days of their courtship that the age difference would matter, that Vincent would eventually regret choosing an older woman. But those fears faded as their love deepened and matured. "You ever wish we had met when we were younger?" Willa asked him one evening as they sat on their porch, watching the sun set over their land. She was 46 now, Vincent 40. "No," Vincent said without hesitation. "If we had met when we were younger, we would have been different people. You might not have had the strength and wisdom you have now. I might have been too restless to appreciate what I had. We met exactly when we were supposed to." Willa laced her fingers through his. "I spent so many years thinking my life was over, that the best parts had passed me by. I was wrong." "We were both wrong," Vincent said. "I thought I would spend my whole life wandering, never really belonging anywhere, but I belong here with you." Their 4th year of marriage brought unexpected challenges. A drought hit the territory hard, and many of their neighbors struggled. Willa and Vincent extended credit at the store, sometimes knowing full well they might never be repaid. They opened their creek to neighbors whose wells had run dry, and Vincent helped organize work crews to dig deeper wells in the community. "We are going to take a loss this year," Willa told Vincent as she reviewed their accounts. "A significant one." "I know," Vincent said, "but it is the right thing to do. These people are our neighbors, our friends. We help each other through the hard times." The drought finally broke in late summer, blessed rain falling for 3 days straight. The community celebrated, and Willa and Vincent hosted a barbecue on their ranch, their way of giving thanks for their good fortune and the support of their neighbors. As Willa watched the gathering, children running through the grass while adults shared food and conversation, she felt overwhelmed with gratitude. This life, this community, this love she shared with Vincent, all of it had seemed impossible just a few years ago. Vincent appeared at her side, sliding his arm around her waist. "What are you thinking about? How lucky I am," Willa said. "How wrong I was to believe my heart was too old for this." "Your heart was never too old," Vincent said. "It was just waiting for the right moment to begin again." In their 5th year together, Willa's book was published by a small press in San Francisco. It was not a bestseller, but it sold steadily, and she began receiving letters from women across the territories who saw their own experiences reflected in her words. The modest royalties provided extra income, which they immediately invested back into the ranch. They expanded their horse breeding operation, adding 2 stallions with excellent temperaments. Vincent developed a training method that produced calm, reliable horses, and their reputation spread. Buyers came from as far as New Mexico and California to purchase Cole stock. The general store continued to thrive under Sarah's management, and they opened a second location in a growing mining town about 30 miles away. Peter, who had started as a delivery boy, now managed that store and had become like family. Willa sometimes marveled at how much her life had changed. She was 48 years old, running a successful ranch and business empire with the man she loved. Her body showed the years, her hair more gray than brown now, her hands marked by hard work. But when Vincent looked at her, she still saw the same desire and love that had been there from the beginning. "You get more beautiful every year," he told her one morning as they prepared for the day. "You need your eyes checked," Willa replied, but she was smiling. "My eyes work just fine. I see a woman who built something remarkable from nothing, who took a chance on a wandering cowboy and helped him find his home, who is kind and strong and the love of my life." Vincent pulled her close. "That is the most beautiful thing in the world to me." Their 6th anniversary brought an unexpected visitor. A man rode up to their ranch one afternoon, dusty from travel, and introduced himself as Vincent's brother, William Cole. "I heard you settled down," William said, his resemblance to Vincent striking despite being several years older. "Wanted to see if it was true, the wanderer finally putting down roots." The visit was awkward at first. William had gotten the family ranch in Texas, as Vincent had mentioned, and there was old tension between the brothers about how their parents' estate had been divided. But Willa, ever the diplomat, helped smooth things over with good food and genuine hospitality. "You have done well for yourself," William admitted on his last evening after Vincent had shown him around the ranch. "Better than I expected." "I have Willa to thank for most of it," Vincent said, his arm around his wife. "She took a chance on me when she could have settled for a safe, solitary life." William looked at Willa with new respect. "My brother always was lucky, even when he did not know it." After William left, Vincent was quieter than usual. Willa found him standing by the corral, watching their horses in the fading light. "What is troubling you?" she asked, leaning against the fence beside him. "Nothing is troubling me. That is what I was thinking about. For years, I carried this anger about my family, about feeling like I had been cheated out of my inheritance. But seeing William, hearing about the struggles he has had keeping the ranch running, I realized I got the better deal." "How so?" Vincent turned to face her. "Because I was free to find you. If I had been tied to that land in Texas, we never would have met. I would not have this life, this happiness. So maybe everything happened exactly the way it was supposed to." Willa kissed him softly. "I believe that too. Every hard thing in my life, every loss and struggle, led me to you." Their 7th year was marked by prosperity and peace. The ranch was profitable, their horses sought after across the territory. The stores provided steady income, and Willa's 2nd book, a collection of stories about the women of Arizona Territory, was even more successful than her first. They began taking on a mentorship role in the community, helping young couples get started with business advice and sometimes small loans. Willa particularly enjoyed working with young women, encouraging them to pursue their own ambitions and not just see themselves as helpless appendages to their husbands. "You would have made an excellent teacher," Vincent told her after she spent an afternoon helping a young woman set up a bookkeeping system for her new dressmaking business. "I am teaching," Willa replied, "just not in a schoolroom." They also became more involved in territorial politics, advocating for better roads and schools. Vincent served on the county commission for a term, using his knowledge of the territory to improve mail routes and emergency services. Life was full and rich, but not without its sorrows. Old man Carmichael passed away peacefully in his sleep at age 78, leaving his remaining property to his children. Willa and Vincent attended the funeral, grateful for the kindness he had shown them. Mrs. Carmichael, whose biscuits Vincent had praised years ago, thanked Willa for being such a good influence on her husband in his final years. "He always said you two were proof that it is never too late to find happiness," Mrs. Carmichael said, tears streaming down her weathered face. That gave him comfort. The seasons passed, marked by the rhythms of ranch life. Spring bringing new foals, summer with its long days of work under the blazing sun, autumn with its cooler temperatures and preparation for winter, and winter itself with its stark beauty and quiet evenings by the fire. Willa and Vincent developed their own traditions. Sunday morning rides to the far edge of their property, where the views stretched for miles. Monthly trips to the store just to check in and have lunch with Sarah, who had become like a daughter to them. Annual hosting of the community harvest celebration, their ranch the gathering place for neighbors to share food and gratitude. On their 8th anniversary, Vincent surprised Willa with a room he had been secretly building onto their house. It was a proper office with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a large desk positioned to catch the morning light, and a comfortable chair for reading. "For your writing," Vincent said as Willa stood in the doorway, tears streaming down her face. "You need a proper space for your work." "It is perfect," Willa whispered. "You are perfect." "I am far from perfect, but I love you more than I knew it was possible to love someone." Vincent took her hands. "Thank you for seeing past my rough cowboy exterior to the man underneath. Thank you for taking a chance when you thought you were too old for chances. Thank you for every single day of these 8 years." Willa pulled him close, kissing him deeply. "I should be thanking you. You gave me back my life, my hope, my belief in love. Before you walked into my store, I was just existing. Now I am truly living." They made love in the new office, christening it with laughter and passion, and afterward they lay tangled together on the floor, looking up at the ceiling beams Vincent had carefully installed. "I want to grow old with you," Vincent said softly. "I want to see your hair turn completely gray and watch the lines deepen around your eyes when you smile. I want to hold your hand through whatever comes, good and bad." "We are already growing old together," Willa pointed out. "Then I want to grow older, ancient. I want decades more of this of us." "That sounds perfect to me." Their 9th year brought significant changes to Snowflake and the surrounding territory. The railroad pushed through, connecting their small town to larger markets. This was both opportunity and challenge. More customers could reach them, but also more competition. Willa and Vincent adapted, focusing on quality and personal service. They could not compete with large suppliers on price, but they could offer expertise, reliability, and genuine care for their customers. This strategy worked. While some businesses struggled with the railroad's arrival, the Cole enterprises thrived. They also took on their first apprentice, a young man named Daniel, whose family had fallen on hard times. Vincent taught him everything about horse breeding and training, while Willa showed him the business side of running a ranch. Daniel proved to be a quick learner and a hard worker, and they began to see him as the son they had never had. "Do you ever wish we had children?" Willa asked Vincent one night. She was nearly 50 now, long past childbearing years, but the question sometimes still surfaced. Vincent considered it seriously, as he did all her questions. "Sometimes I wonder what they would have been like. But honestly, Willa, I am content with our life exactly as it is. We have each other, we have built something meaningful, and we have had the freedom to focus on us. That is enough for me, more than enough." "It is enough for me too," Willa agreed. "I just wanted to make sure you did not feel like you missed out on something important." "The only thing I would have missed out on was you, if I had let fear or convention, or what other people thought keep me from pursuing you that first day in your store." Vincent kissed her forehead. "Everything else is just details." As their 10th anniversary approached, they planned a celebration, inviting friends and family from across the territory. William was coming from Texas with his wife and children. Sarah was bringing her new husband, whom she had met through the store. Peter would be there with his growing family. The Carmichael children were coming, along with dozens of neighbors and friends they had made over the years. Willa threw herself into preparations, cooking and cleaning and making sure everything would be perfect. Vincent finally pulled her aside 2 days before the event. "You are going to exhaust yourself," he said gently. "And that is not what this celebration is about. It is not about having the perfect party. It is about marking 10 years of our life together." "I know," Willa said, "but I want everyone to have a good time." "They will have a good time because they love us and they are happy for us. Not because the decorations are perfect or because you made 17 different dishes." Vincent took her hands. "Let people help. Let this be about community, not just you working yourself to death." Willa realized he was right. She had been so focused on making everything perfect that she had forgotten the whole point of the celebration. So she accepted help. Sarah and the other women brought dishes. Daniel and Peter set up tables and chairs. The Carmichael children brought wildflowers from their mother's garden. The day of their 10th anniversary dawned clear and bright. The party was held at the ranch, tables set up under the trees near the creek. Music played, children ran through the grass, and food covered every available surface. When it came time for toasts, Vincent stood and asked for everyone's attention. 10 years ago, I was a wandering cowboy with no place to call home and no real hope for the future. Then I walked into a general store in Snowflake and met the most remarkable woman I have ever known." He looked at Willa, his eyes shining with emotion. "She told me she was too old for love, that her life was settled and she did not need anyone complicating it. But I saw something in her eyes that told a different story. I saw loneliness and longing, and a heart that was not done loving, no matter what she tried to tell herself." Willa felt tears streaming down her face as Vincent continued. "These 10 years have been the best of my life. We have built a ranch, grown businesses, written books, and helped our community. But more than any of that, we have proven that it is never too late to start over. Never too late to take a chance on love. Never too late to believe that your best days might still be ahead of you." He raised his glass. "To Willa, the love of my life, my partner in all things, and proof that some hearts are not too old for love but are just beginning." Everyone cheered and drank, and then Willa stood, wiping her tears. "When Vincent walked into my store 10 years ago, I was convinced that part of my life was over. I was 43, widowed, set in my ways. The idea that a handsome cowboy would be interested in me seemed absurd." She smiled at Vincent, but he was persistent. "He kept coming back, kept talking to me, kept making me remember what it felt like to be seen and valued and desired. He did not see an aging widow. He saw a woman with strength and capability and something to offer." Her voice grew stronger. "These 10 years have taught me that age is just a number, that love does not have an expiration date, that it is never too late to be brave, to take risks, to believe in happy endings. Vincent gave me back my life, but more than that, he gave me back myself." She raised her own glass. "To Vincent, who proved that cowboys can be patient and kind and exactly what a stubborn woman needs. To us and whatever years we have ahead. May we face them together, as we have faced everything, with love and partnership and joy." The party continued into the evening, fireflies beginning to glow as the sun set. Willa and Vincent danced, her head resting on his shoulder, moving slowly to the music. Around them, their friends and community celebrated, but in that moment, they were aware only of each other. "Happy anniversary," Vincent whispered. "Happy anniversary," Willa replied. "Here is to 10 more years." "And 10 more after that," Vincent said, "and as many as we can steal from time." Their lives continued to unfold with purpose and meaning. Willa published a 3rd book, this one about building a business in the frontier territories, which was adopted as a textbook by several schools back east. Vincent's horse breeding program became one of the most respected in Arizona, his training methods studied and copied by others. They watched Daniel grow from a struggling apprentice into a skilled rancher in his own right. Eventually, they sold him a portion of their land at a fair price, helping him establish his own small operation adjacent to theirs. He married a lovely woman named Catherine, and their children called Willa and Vincent aunt and uncle. Sarah had 3 children who spent their summers at the ranch, learning to ride and helping with chores. Willa taught the oldest girl to keep accounts, passing on the business knowledge she had learned the hard way. Vincent taught the 2 boys about horses, his patience endless as they made mistake after mistake. "We may not have had children of our own," Willa said one evening as they watched Daniel's youngest daughter chase fireflies across their lawn. "But we have been part of raising these young people. That counts for something." "It counts for everything," Vincent agreed. "Family is not just blood. It is who you choose to love and who chooses to love you back." Time marked them both. Vincent's hair turned silver, and his hands developed arthritis that sometimes made handling horses difficult. Willa's eyesight weakened, requiring spectacles for her reading and writing. They moved slower, tired more easily, but their love remained as strong as ever. On their 15th anniversary, they took a trip to San Francisco, their first real vacation. They visited Willa's publisher, walked along the waterfront, and stayed in a hotel that felt absurdly fancy after years of ranch life. "I feel out of place here," Vincent admitted as they dressed for dinner at a fine restaurant. "Me too," Willa said, adjusting his collar. "But it is nice to try something different. We can be out of place together." They laughed through dinner, making jokes about the tiny portions and elaborate presentations. But afterward, walking along the bay in the evening fog, Vincent stopped and turned Willa to face him. "I have never regretted a single day with you," he said seriously. "Even the hard ones, even the times we struggled or disagreed, every moment has been worth it because we were together." "I feel the same way," Willa said. "You changed my life, Vincent. You made me believe in second chances and new beginnings. You loved me when I could not love myself." They returned to Snowflake renewed, ready for whatever came next. The ranch continued to prosper, though they gradually turned over more of the daily operations to Daniel and his family. Willa focused on mentoring young women in the community, while Vincent served as an informal advisor to anyone trying to establish a horse breeding operation. Their 17th year brought sadness when Sarah died suddenly of influenza, leaving behind her husband and 3 children. Willa and Vincent helped however they could, taking in the children for months while their father figured out how to manage alone. Eventually, he remarried, a kind woman who loved the children as her own, but the loss of Sarah hit Willa hard. "She was like a daughter to me," Willa told Vincent one night, crying in his arms. "I know she was not my blood, but I loved her like she was." "She was your daughter," Vincent said firmly, "in every way that mattered, and she knew you loved her. That counts, Willa. That matters." On their 20th anniversary, the town of Snowflake threw them a surprise celebration. The mayor gave a speech about how their business and their example had helped the town grow and prosper. Young couples came forward to thank them for loans that had gotten them started or advice that had saved their businesses. "You two represent the best of what this territory can be," the mayor said. "Hard work, generosity, and proof that love knows no age limits. You are an inspiration to us all." Willa and Vincent stood together, overwhelmed by the outpouring of affection. Later, alone at home, they reflected on how far they had come. 20 years, Willa said, her head on Vincent's chest as they lay in bed. "Sometimes it feels like yesterday you walked into my store. Other times it feels like we have been together forever." "Both are true," Vincent said, his fingers tracing patterns on her arm. "Every day with you feels new, but also like coming home to something I have always known." "Do you remember what you said to me that first day?" Willa asked. You said you would be seeing me again soon. I thought you were just being polite." "I knew," Vincent said. "From that first moment, seeing you behind that counter, so capable and strong, something in me recognized something in you. I knew I had found what I had been searching for all those years." "I wish I could go back and tell that scared, closed-off woman that everything was going to be all right," Willa said. "That the best parts of her life were just beginning." "She would not have believed you," Vincent said with a smile in his voice. "She had to learn it herself, had to take the risk and see where it led. I am glad I did. Take the risk, I mean. Even though I was terrified. Me too. Best decision you ever made was agreeing to that first dinner with me. Best decision I ever made was letting you prove me wrong about being too old for love." They fell asleep wrapped around each other. Two people who had found their way home against all odds. Years continued to pass, marked by the quiet satisfaction of a life well lived. Vincent's brother William passed away, leaving his portion of the Texas ranch to his children, but also leaving Vincent a letter that apologized for old hurts and expressed admiration for the life his younger brother had built. "He was proud of you," Willa said after Vincent read her the letter, tears in his eyes. "He just did not know how to say it while he was alive." "I wish we had more time," Vincent said, "to repair things properly." "You had enough time for what mattered. He knew you forgave him. He knew you were happy. That is enough." They celebrated their 25th anniversary quietly, just the two of them and Daniel's family. They were in their 60s now, moving slower, dealing with the aches and pains of aging bodies. But their love had only deepened, refined by years of partnership and shared experiences. 25 years, Vincent marveled. A quarter of a century. "And I would do it all again," Willa said. "Every moment, every challenge, every joy, all of it exactly the same. Even that time I accidentally let the horses into your garden," Willa laughed, remembering the chaos. "Even that. Though I was very angry at you for about a week. You were, but you forgave me like you always do. Just like you forgive me when I get stubborn and refuse to ask for help. That is what partners do. Forgive each other, support each other, choose each other every single day." As they moved into their late 60s, they gradually stepped back from active management of their business interests. The stores were sold to Peter, who had proven himself more than capable of running them. Most of the ranch was leased to Daniel, with the understanding that it would eventually pass to him and his family. Willa and Vincent kept the house and a small portion of land, enough for a few horses and a garden. They spent their days quietly, reading, writing, taking gentle rides through their remaining property. Willa published her memoirs, a reflection on a life that had spanned vast changes in the American West. Vincent wrote down his training methods, creating a manual that would help future generations of horse breeders. "We have had a good run," Vincent said one evening as they sat on their porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant colors. He was 69, his hair completely white, his face lined but still handsome in Willa's eyes. "We have," Willa agreed. She was 72, her body worn by years of hard work but her mind still sharp. "No regrets, none," Vincent confirmed, "except maybe that we did not have more time." "We have time," Willa said. "However much we get, we will use it well," and they did. They spent their remaining years surrounded by the community they had helped build, beloved by the young people they had mentored, secure in the knowledge that their legacy would continue long after they were gone. On a spring morning in their 32nd year of marriage, Vincent passed away peacefully in his sleep. He was 76. Willa woke to find him beside her, looking peaceful, a slight smile on his face as if he had died dreaming of something beautiful. The grief was enormous, threatening to swallow her whole. But Willa had learned over their decades together that love was stronger than loss. She mourned him deeply, but she also celebrated the extraordinary gift of their years together. At his funeral, she stood before the gathered crowd and spoke from her heart. Vincent Cole proved to me that it is never too late to begin again, that hearts do not grow too old for love, they simply wait for the right moment to bloom again. He gave me 32 years of partnership, joy, and unwavering devotion. I was 43 when we met, convinced my life was essentially over. He showed me it was just beginning. Her voice grew stronger. Do not mourn that he is gone. Celebrate that he lived, that he loved, that he made this world better by being in it. And if you take anything from his life, let it be this. It is never too late. Never too late to change, to love, to start over, to believe in happy endings. Willa lived another 8 years after Vincent's death, surrounded by the extended family they had created. She finished one final book, a love story barely disguised as memoir, detailing how a stubborn widow and a persistent cowboy had built a life together against all odds. She passed away at 80 in her sleep, in the house they had built together. Daniel found her in the morning, looking peaceful, her hand resting on Vincent's pillow as if reaching for him even in death. They were buried side by side on the ranch they had loved, under a shared headstone that read, Vincent Cole and Willa Cole. They proved that love knows no age, only perfect timing. Their story became legend in Snowflake, told to young couples who thought they had missed their chance at love, shared with widows and widowers who believed their hearts were done beating for anyone new. The house they built still stood, occupied by Daniel's grandchildren, and the horses bred from their original stock still carried the Cole name. On summer evenings, people said you could sometimes see 2 figures riding across the property at sunset, an older couple on horseback, his arm around her waist, her head on his shoulder. Just a trick of the light, most said. But the romantics, the ones who believed in love stories, they knew better. They knew it was Vincent and Willa, still together, still riding through the land they had loved, proof eternal that some love stories do not end with death. That when 2 hearts find each other at exactly the right moment, when someone proves that you are never too old to begin again, that love echoes through time itself. And in Snowflake, Arizona, whenever someone said they were too old for love, too set in their ways, too past their prime, someone else would tell them about Willa Vaughn and Vincent Cole, about how she thought she was too old for love and how he proved her heart was just beginning. Because that is what real love does. It does not care about age or convention or what other people think. It simply finds you when you need it most and changes everything.